Welcome to another edition of Coffee, Eggs and Inspiration. In this video, I'm going to take you through my top 5 tips for founders. Let's go. Well, I've been angel investing for about 7 years. I think 7 or 8 years ago was my first investment in a startup. I have 3 companies of my own that I've founded, so I know what it is to be a founder, both from an investor's point of view as well as from a founder's point of view. And in this video, I'm just going to take you through my 5 top tips, mostly I would say from an investor point of view and observing how various founders operate. Tip number 1, solve a problem. You've got to start with the market need. And some of the best businesses that I've seen over the years have been founded on the principle that something's broken and needs to be fixed. A great example that I came across recently was a founder whose mum had very sadly passed away in a car accident, and he's about probably in his early 30s, and he just found it really difficult, not only sort of grieving but actually finding a solution that could meet all of the sort of broad needs of a death in the family, from insurance to estate planning after the fact, to funeral planning and so on. So he started this business called Guardian Angel. I'll link it below, which brings all of that together in an app. And although the topic is rather depressing to listen to, of course it's something that all of us go through at some stage, as relatives and eventually ourselves, right? So it's a need that needs to be filled, and he's nailing that need. Tip number 2, it's really lonely being a founder. So if you can, get a co-founder or 2, ideally 1 or 2 others who can join you on the mission, who believe in it as much as you can, and who can help structure the business idea, do those pitches when you're raising money, and indeed go on and run the company. Obviously it helps to have people with different skills, maybe a technical person, a commercial person, and somebody who's skilled more in the marketing side, perhaps, or the user experience side. But have a founder. It's a lonely place to be. You'll be on a roller coaster. You'll have some good days and some really dark days. And it's so good to share those experiences and worry together as opposed to alone. And it's also really important from a thinking point of view, right? If you have different people around the table presented with the same facts, they will bring a slightly different lens to that. So that sort of diversity of thought is also really helpful. Tip number 3, so you've got your idea, you've founded the company, you've got your co-founders, it's time to go and raise some money. That typically involves writing a pitch deck, which in my experience tends to be, not always, but tends to be a slide document, generally about 5 to 10 slides. Any longer than that, starting to get a little bit long. Any shorter than that, it's a little bit too high level. I have seen sort of 1 pages as well. That's sometimes handy if you're canvassing a lot of people, and just to sort of pick up qualified leads, you can send them a slightly less detailed version with sort of everything on a page. That works well too, but at minimum it's a 5 to 10 slide deck. Underpinning that or accompanying it should be a financial model, a set of projections. Investors like me will always ask for those. We also always know that the numbers are wrong. They're an estimate, but they're directionally interesting. Orders of magnitude at this stage, certainly in the seed stage, are really important for investors to understand. A, if you've got a sort of handle on the business model, and B, if that business model is scalable, and there's an interesting market. Pitch decks generally have a pretty standard formula. You can see loads of videos just on the subject of pitch decks, but I find it's really important to start with the idea. What is the problem that you're trying to solve, and why is this a good solution for it? Second, to talk about the team behind it. And investors like me invest mostly, I would say, in the strength of the team, because the idea tends to change as the market testing or market acceptance, market fit is developed and validated. So the idea, the team. Next comes how the business model works. So how do you earn money from this? When is that sort of point where you're going to switch the revenue on, and at what point will that revenue overtake the cost? Generally that's 1 or 2 years down the line, but the business model is really important because it speaks to somewhat the scalability of the model, and also it gives investors an idea of sort of other sort of benchmarks that they might compare it to. Fourth, I would say, how does the scalability of the business look? Is there a big market globally for it? How much is that market? I would look at markets in the range of sort of $50 to $100 billion a year, addressable market, and you need to have some sort of idea of how you can build a moat, a sort of protected insulation around your value proposition that sort of enables you to scale the business and have a stickiness about it from a user perspective. So scaling, market size, this sort of thing. Finally, financials. Of course, you've got to have a look at the financials. Typically, I would see between 3 and 5 years. And in another video, I'll talk about my own heuristics, my own sort of rules of thumb on valuing a business. But investors will want to see a path to profitability because, of course, at that tipping point, once you're profitable, you get into that zone where an exit becomes available. Whether it's a trade sale, somebody else buying the company, in other words, or some sort of other liquidity event, like a private cap table sale, a sale between two shareholders at different stages, one who bought earlier and one who's buying at a later round. In some cases, it'll be an IPO. Well, I hope you found those tips helpful. Good on you for having the courage to be a founder. Good luck with your business, good luck with the fundraising, and have fun along the way.